I find it amazing at best, hilarious I guess at worst, that we come to quote a solemn and amazing moment. We've been on this path since November 2016. This is not new. We've been trying this for almost 3 years if you're a majority member of this party. The only thing that has changed is the opportunity from last November when you became the majority. The only thing that changed in your desire to impeach this president was that you became the majority. And we have spent all year in this committee trying to impeach the president. We have occasionally had markups on bills, most of which so partisan they cannot even go forward in the Senate, most of which that do not address any issue that we've talked about. But it is amazing to me that we're taking it now as such a solemn oath that we've made up something to now come to this point to say, this is very solemn, like it jumped up and snuck up on you. It's about like the holiday season. It doesn't jump up and sneak up on you when you've been expecting it the whole time. And that's what we've been doing. What has been amazing to me is some things that we have seen. So let's just take some perspective here for a little while. What has our committee, this great committee, come to? That's the question for us. Let's just take it for just a moment inside these impeachment hearings. This is our third. I'll count it into tomorrow for three. 3 hearings in this committee of impeachment, and that's all we're having. What did we get out of those 3 hearings? We had a bunch of law professors, 3 of which who cannot stand the president, who cannot stand his voters, and cannot stand the fact that he's still in office, telling us why he should be impeached, and that inferences were okay to find impeachment. We had a hearing just 2 days ago from staff lecturing us on what's relevant and not relevant, and what they found in a report, while the member that wrote the report hid in his closet somewhere, I guess, or in his office, not wanting to come face the questions of this committee. That should be abhorrent to everyone here. So let's think about what we've seen and what we've not seen. And again, Chairman Schiff is nowhere to be found. When we understand this, we look forward. Tonight it has started again. We talk about tearing down of national institutions, and we start talking about putting our security at risk, when tonight, even in the chairman's opening statement, we start with one of the most amazing takedowns I have ever seen. When they can't make their argument that the president pressured Mr. Zelensky, they then attack Mr. Zelensky and then say that he was pressured. When Mr. Zelensky on numerous occasions, he said, I have not been pressured, I'm not being used, the call was fine, I'm not being pressured to do anything. Then here's what the majority is saying. The majority is saying Mr. Zelensky is a liar, and we in this body, the Democrats, are tearing down a world leader in the eyes of those that don't like him in his own country, and Russia, who is attacking him. Think about that one for just a second. Let that sink in. When we can't make our case, we tear down, not only try to tear down the leader of the free world, President Trump, we're tearing down the newly elected leader of the Ukraine. This is amazing to me. You can't make your case against the president because nothing happened, and when President Zelensky confirms nothing happened, we start tearing him down. I never thought we would cross outside of the ocean to try and basically impugn the integrity of a world leader like we have been for the last 2 hearings. We have also found other things that we have found in our very minimal hearings here in this body, is we have seen that other committees have used political vendettas against ranking members and others, including members of the press who are sitting here tonight, by putting phone records in, naming names. I mean, you talk about getting even. We put names, Mr. Nunez, Mr. Solomon, others, on those 4 numbers that we looked at. And nobody would own up to it. Mr. Goldman, Mr. Schiff, of course, wasn't here, but even Mr. Goldman wouldn't own up to who said to do that when they could have simply put in the record, Congressman 1, Congressman 2, reporter 1. No, they got what they wanted. They got their drive-by. They got their political smear. That's the record being built in Judiciary Committee. Not a record of facts against this president, a record of a Democratic Party who's lost all moorings of fairness and good taste. That's what we're seeing here. And we can have all the flowery opening statements tonight we want, but they can't get away from that fact. What is the big lie that is being perpetrated here on us? The big lie is this, and one of the Democrats have told the American people, they have said this for 3 years. The big lie that we're hearing perpetrated tonight is one, the end justifies the means. The lie is that the sham impeachment is okay because the threat is so real and so urgent and so imminent. The big lie is that political expediency is honorable and justifiable, and history has shown that to be untrue and dangerous. The big lie is that Adam Schiff had gained evidence in plain sight, he said, of President Trump colluding with Russia, and Special Counsel Mueller's report debunked that lie, but it continues to spread like a cancer every time we meet. The big lie is that the evidence of the impeachment is overwhelming and uncontested. The facts are undisputed. The very fact that people in this committee dispute the facts make them disputed facts, not undisputed facts. The problem that we're seeing here is when you even get to the articles themselves, abuse of power. When you look at these articles and compare them to history, I'm glad the chairman brought up history, because I would not write history. It will be written for us at a later time, because they will not always be the majority, as he talked about this president not always being president. I do believe he will be president for 5 more years. But at this time, there will be a turnover at some point. And what have we had? This is the articles that we wrote? After all of these hearings and all these grand pronouncements and all these thoughts of crimes in plain sight, we get abuse of power? With no real dates on this is the abuse. It's just generic, vague statements. You know why I believe that is? Is because the Democrats can't come up with the argument for it. They don't have the who knew it and when they knew it. All they have is, well, here, members, we're going to give you abuse of power. You go home, pick something you don't like about the president. There's your abuse of power. This is as much about political expediency as it is anything else, and that should never be in articles of impeachment. And anybody to defend that is treading on very thin ice. And then obstruction of Congress. You know, the only obstruction we've seen here is obstruction from Chairman Schiff of this investigation. He did not turn over the documents as he was supposed to. We get those last Saturday in a massive document up after we've already had a hearing, after we had getting ready for another hearing in which we were supposed to lay out the report. And tonight, he sends a letter of classified information that has been classified over to us tonight. Don't think for a second, American public, that this majority wants you to find the truth. The obstruction has only occurred from Adam Schiff and the HPSC and the majority, keeping people from actually trying to find the truth. That's the only obstruction here. So why don't we just have that as an obstruction charge? But it would be against Adam Schiff and the majority, not the president. 2 articles like that? Abuse of power and obstruction of Congress in 70-something days. The only abuse of power here is the majority racing the fastest they've ever had, the clock in the calendar determining what impeachment looks like. That's the abuse of power, as Professor Turley said. But before I finish, I cannot stop without this. The real legacy of this impeachment hearing will not be the removal of Donald Trump as president. In fact, if anything, they see the majority for what they are, on a 3-year vendetta to get someone that they couldn't beat, and they're desperate to do it before he beats them again next year. Here's the real damage. It's the institutional damage to this body. It's the institutional damage to getting information even after hearing started, for not having the rules followed, for having this committee, as the chairman warned us about 20 years ago when he said this great committee, the Judiciary Committee, should never accept a report from someone else without verifying it and having hearings to make sure it was there. Unless, as the chairman said, we become a rubber stamp. I don't know about you, but I'm not a rubber stamp, and I don't like what I have been forced to do. Sit here, be lectured to by law professors and a staff that does not wear a pen telling us what's relevant or not. We're a rubber stamp of the worst kind because we didn't even try to make a point. The minority hearing day, which, by the way, get ready. We'll talk about this more. We're going to talk about something tonight, and we'll get it shot down tomorrow. And Rules Committee will take care of it. But for reporters and for media and people who've watched this body and the institution that I've loved all of my life and watched it since I was an intern up here being destroyed day after day, if the minority has no rights, and one day this majority will be back in the minority, and they will be crying and screaming for minority rights to be upheld, and I will just point back to 2019 and say, this is the year you put a dagger in minority rights. Justify the most basic obligations of this committee have been overrun. So tonight we're in December. After a year of trashing this institution, a year of trying to trash this administration and this president, we come up with abuse of power and can't define it. We come up with obstruction of Congress after 72 days. I know they're desperate. You know how I know it? Adam Schiff's own words yesterday. We can't go to court. That would take too long. An election is coming. Let me finish the last part of that sentence. Is he liked to put words into President Trump's mouth when he faked the call transcript. No, Adam, what you need to continue to say is, we can't beat him next year. The only thing we need is a 30-second commercial saying, we impeached him. That's the wrong reason to impeach somebody, and the American people are seeing through this. But at the end of the day, my heart breaks for a committee that has trashed this institution, and this is where we are now. With that, I yield back.